So, does Path of Exile 2 suck? Or is it great? Is it overhyped? I don't know. There's a lot of opinions out there. So this particular video is my take on it. If you're interested in some random guy's opinion that you found on YouTube or you clicked on the thumbnail, feel free to listen in. But here's a really casual game player's take on Path of Exile 2. Full disclosure, I haven't completed the entire early access yet, but boy, let me tell you, the first two acts were pretty fun thus far. If you have friends, family, or loved ones, just go ahead and kiss them goodbye as you sit in your man cave or wherever you play this game, and let them know that you'll see them in a few months after you come back up from the addictive hole that this game truly is. And also, if you're a casual gamer, kind of like myself, I hope you love pain. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into the review. So let's go ahead and start with some gameplay, and the first thing I really want to talk about is the difficulty. There are widely varying opinions out there on the difficulty of the game. Some people say it's really not that bad. Maybe those are previous Path of Exile players. I'm unsure. I don't even know what Path of Exile 1 looks like. But if you're jumping in from something like Diablo 4 into this, it is a huge culture shock for you. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily bad, but be prepared to die a lot, I think, during your first playthrough. I have probably died, I don't know, close to 175,000 times in the first two acts. But yet somehow I keep coming back for more. The difficulty really comes from the fact that everything hits you really hard and you have to dodge roll a lot. So in that regard, I guess it's kind of like Diablo 2 or Diablo 4 mixed with Dark Souls or something like Elden Ring. I know that there's quite a bit of difference between those two games, but it legitimately just combines the two. Mechanics are punishing, but somehow fun. I don't know. It's something I feel like you have to try for yourself to kind of get into it. I briefly touched on this in the intro, but the addicting factor of this game is wild. And this is coming from somebody who's played Destiny 2 for well over 2,000 hours worth of game time. And I know maybe to some of you out there that's not a lot, but for me, who's a pretty casual dude, that is a lot of hours. And I cannot seem to put this game down. I want to go do something on another game, and then I just find myself booting up Path of Exile 2 again. And I know it's new, it's shiny, it's whatever. But generally, I feel like I cannot put the game down, and I've been enjoying it a lot. I think this is in part because of the gameplay style. So you're running through various procedurally generated levels, kind of like exactly Diablo 4, hunting for loot, but just killing through swaths of enemies. It's a little bit slow in the beginning of the game, but I mean, all of these games are kind of like that. The further you go along, you get that power creep happening where you feel like you can wipe out an entire horde that comes at you instantly, and it's just really satisfying. Which kind of lends me into the next point I wanted to talk about, which is just the general combat of the game. It feels very smooth going from fighting a large group of enemies and just clearing ads, going straight into a boss fight. It would seem like it would feel jarring, but there's no load screens. Everything just is kind of seamless as you go throughout the level. Additionally, there's mini bosses and notable items and things like that to find within each area, so it makes you want to explore the entire map. I found myself making it to my objective to load into the next area, and I would just grab the waypoint there and then go back to the area I was before, just because I wanted to find whatever mini boss was there or whatever the notable item may be. And since the maps are regenerated every time, this feels fresh each time you do it. So I've played 3 characters so far, and even though I've explored each of the areas and seen the mini bosses, I still actively go back and explore the entire map. So sorry for those of you who may be playing with me at any point. It's going to take us forever because I have to see the whole map. I've got to get it all uncovered. And that's my issue, but I digress. As you go into the bosses, this is where the difficulty gets pretty increased. Don't get me wrong, there's some tough areas within the levels where large mobs come and swarm you and it feels like you get one hit, so those are hard. But if you die, the map reloads and you kind of get a second shot, and maybe it doesn't load in with as many enemies or something like that. Boss fights are on another level, okay? So taking a minute to talk about that. As somebody who's never really played a Souls game before, it felt punishing at first, but somehow I kept wanting to go back and fight the bosses. The mechanics are unique, the boss design is really great. It feels new every time you fight one of these enemies. These big bosses have many mechanics to them. Some of them you're trying to juggle 7 things at the same time while you're dodging. You're just looking crazy out there trying to figure it out, but it's so fun. I've got to say, so far, without doing too much spoilers, one of my favorite bosses was in the Titan Valley. That boss was extremely difficult, but oh my lord, was it so much fun. The mechanics were great, the design looked amazing. You felt powerful fighting this giant creature statue thing that was just carving up the landscape you were on. It was really great. And I have to say that that part of it really has me hooked, and maybe that's why, even though I die at least 10 times on each boss, that I keep coming back for more. Now, this wouldn't be a completely fair review if I didn't have some sort of critique in relation to the combat, and that is console versus PC. And I don't have much experience on the PC, but I can tell you on console, sometimes your character is doing some crazy stuff when it comes to targeting. So I don't know if the controller just doesn't do a great job with the auto targeting, but you'll be trying to attack one enemy and then you'll be swinging halfway across the room at a gnat that you can't see. I don't even know. But sometimes that really causes a death or some serious frustration. And I'm sure they'll get it worked out. But as far as console versus PC, I'm sure PC players are having an easier time, at least with the targeting piece. That is definitely something in the combat area that I feel like needs to be looked at. And that's a little bit selfish because I'm mainly a console player, so I feel like it needs to be fixed so that I can enjoy my experience even more than I already have. So I've touched a little bit on it, but I did want to make some quick comparisons just with games that I've played. I would say that Path of Exile 2 feels a lot like Diablo 2. And I know Diablo 2 players are probably rolling over right now saying nothing compares, but the addictive nature of this game, as well as the way that you load in from area to area, feels very similar to that. The loot chase feels very similar. There's gems that can be socketed, there's runes, there's apparently gems that you can socket into gems, which that's a whole nother thing we'll cover later, I guess. But it feels very similar in the fact that you are totally fine with repeating certain areas in chase of loot. For me, it was always I'm trying to get something to drop, or I'm looking for a particular piece that I might need to boost up. And in Diablo 2, there was a lot more focused chase as certain enemies dropped certain tiers of items. I don't know if that's the case in this game. I will say it's a little bit different from that in regard to the areas being level capped. So as far as I know, at least right now in the early access, if you go back to another area, you can't go back and re-farm anything over there because it's all going to be much lower leveled than what you need. I think another brutally obvious comparison is Diablo 4, just from the way it looks and feels, I guess, with that third character you're above, dungeon crawling, all of that, just with the newer updates from Diablo 2. But it is similar to Diablo 4, but I will say the stark difference here is difficulty. Diablo 4 feels like training wheels. I feel like if you play Diablo 4, you feel like you're riding down the road on your training wheels, and then you think it's easy. And then you play Path of Exile 2, and it's like you went down an extreme mountain biking trail, and your training wheels have popped off, and then you end up flying down the hill and getting injured severely. It's basically like that, and it throws you right into the game as is, just kind of expecting that you're gonna die. That's basically the way it goes. So if you're coming from Diablo 4 because you want something fresh, just expect that the game will be significantly more difficult. As I know in Diablo 4, even in some of the highest difficulty, you can make some pretty wild builds that just level the whole room, and nothing can stand in your way. And I'm sure you can probably do that in this game too, but I'm not there yet, and I'm not sure if anybody else is either. This game in particular has basically pulled me away from all other games, and I briefly mentioned it that I'm a hardcore Destiny 2 player. my addiction is real on that game, and it's making me not want to play it ever. Like, we have scheduled raids that we do, and I'm just trying to be like, do I really want to do that, or would I rather just, go play Path of Exile 2? So take that into consideration when you're thinking about playing. Just realize that it may ruin your, experience on your other games. And not because it's super great or anything. Maybe they just designed it to be addicting. I have no idea. But either way, I fell for it, and here we are. The next piece I want to talk about is not the difficulty of the actual game mechanics themselves, but the difficulty of understanding the skill trees. Oh my god. Maybe Path of Exile 1 players kind of understand what the heck is going on, but when I saw all the different nodes that you could pick, I was immediately overwhelmed. I get it, I understand, I'm not a complete moron, I can read. However, the amount of sheer choice that you have is insane to me. The trees overlap, so you have maybe a monk sitting next to a ranger tree, so you can pick up some ranger perks as a monk. It's insane. The whole thing is just wild, and there's so much variation that you can put into your various builds. Are there going to be metas? 100%. I'm sure right now, if I looked up anything on YouTube, I could find a best ranger build or highest DPS monk build or in-game monster. It's all there, right? I'm sure that there are meta builds that people have come up with, but I'm really enjoying just kind of going through the tree and figuring it out myself, and then taking a look at each piece and designing my character the way I want to. And I have been pretty successful thus far. I mean, I'm not doing no damage runs or anything crazy like that, but I'm enjoying myself. I feel like my character is strong, at least strong enough for what I'm trying to do currently, and it's been fun. I haven't looked up a single guide or watched a single video yet, just because I wanted to take the time to learn it. And I can't even give you a good explanation right now because I haven't learned everything. There's still so much complexity inside of these systems, right? So in addition to the passive skill tree that affects your weapons, you can put gems, I guess, into those somehow. There's skill gems, there's support skill gems, there's spirit skill gems, and then there's another layer of complexity when you complete a trial, which was also a real pain in the butt as a melee character. Let me just throw that in there, called ascendancy. So ascendancy is just another tree that kind of breaks off into the middle of the tree that you can choose more things, and you earn ascendancy points, kind of similar to like champion points in the Elder Scrolls Online, but you can only do it through running these particular trials, right? So there's a lot of complexity in there, and if you want my honest opinion, it's really easy to, quote, play the game efficiently and go look up all these guides on what's best and what to do. I just feel like you'd truly be missing out on the experience that this game is if you went and did that. Another point that kind of has impressed me thus far, and we're getting close to the end here, it's already way longer of a video than I had intended, but coming from a game like Destiny 2, and I'm not trying to hate on Bungie right now, I'm kind of blown away with the response times that they've given us so far. So we're working on already a second patch coming out, and the game has only been released for like slightly over a week, if even that, right? So that being said, there's been feedback given to the developers, and they're working on it immediately, right? So we were just talking about the ascendancy and the trials. People were saying that melee characters were taking extra damage. The developers immediately looked into it and are releasing a patch soon that's going to patch it in where melee characters don't take as much hit on their honor, and it makes the trial slightly easier. Now, I know for some, they like the challenge. I was able to complete it right now. I don't know if that patch went into effect, and that was why I was able to. But either way, it was hard. Like, I had to take a lot of tries to get through it, and sometimes it felt like I was taking spike damage that didn't make any sense, and that was in the patch notes, right? So, in all fairness, this is completely the honeymoon phase right now, where basically we'll say jump and the developers will say how high, because the game's just coming out, right? They want to keep that persona. And I'm not saying they won't keep that up, but I will say that I want to call it reserved optimism for now. And maybe that's because I'm coming from Destiny 2, where we've had bugs that have plagued the game for the past 2 months that are still not fixed. So I will say, it seems like right now at least, the developers are very involved and listening to feedback and looking for us to give that to them. And I personally feel like that's great. I feel like that's what we should be looking for, so hopefully that momentum stays even past the beginnings of the early access and into the full-blown version of the game, right? So, what's the TLDR of this entire thing, right? My overall impressions. I have really enjoyed the game so far, and for somebody who has no idea what they're doing, it's been a freaking blast trying to learn everything. I'm a learner by nature, so for me, I guess learning a bunch of new stuff has been super fun in and of itself. Not to mention that the gameplay itself feels very rewarding. And I'm almost always kind of looking for the next chance to play, and it's been a while since I felt that way with a video game, right? So for me, it's been, I would rather do basically anything else than play video games as of late, but this game has kind of gotten me back into it, right? And it feels really smooth, especially for an early access game. So like I stated, console play is a little bit wonky. I feel like they'll work that out down the road with the controller aiming and things of that nature. My overall gathering from people and friends who play it on PC is that is a pretty smooth experience. So I imagine it'll all get worked out by the end where we are in the full release version. The game is really challenging, but not so challenging that a casual player like myself can't jump into it. I don't ever feel like it's hopeless and that there's no way I'll ever beat it, but it is challenging, and I think everyone needs to know that going into it, is that you're going to be challenged by this game. The skill tree and passives are a little bit overwhelming, but it's definitely something that I think everybody should take the time to kind of jump in and learn more about. Like I said before, I feel like if you just skip over and look up a guide on what the path is that works best, then you're going to miss out on all that experience that you could be trying to build your own character or version of a character. I don't know, whatever that looks like. And overall, I can't really seem to put the game down, and it's basically all I want to do as it stands right now. So with that being said, I should probably go check in on my wife and kids for a few minutes before I jump back in. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next one.